So in this case, it's quite set. It's kind of auditorium. I do a presentation here, you sit there. But there are more flexible setups probably in which you could use digital resources in different ways. Or even in this room, we could come up with different instructional scenarios, how to use the room the best way. In that sense, we connected the learning management system. Each Moodle page basically was connected to a room. And when you entered the room, the page popped up on your mobile device, and you could see, for example, what you could do in that room. So if I would come in that room and I'm logged into the system, it would detect my role. So I'm a presenter, and I could just launch my presentation or launch a video on the infrastructure here. So I use my mobile device as a kind of remote. Yeah? And this is dependent on your role and the instructional design for this room. It could mean, for your case, if we have a kind of classroom response setup, that you enter the room, the system knows there's currently a presentation going on, and if you open your mobile device accessing the Moodle page, you would have a feedback button, like I like this, I don't like this, for example. Yeah? And we want to better understand how we can support educators to design these kind of instructional designs, to create them, and then also how to technically deploy them. So, coming back to the invader, I have some final kind of questions, recommendations for you. If you want to use this kind of technology invasion for your purposes and for learning support with your organization. So the first question I would ask, are your contents and legacy information systems accessible by mobiles and ubiquitous technology? Simple question, did you ever check your web page of the organization on your mobile device? Can you read it or can you not read it? I mean, really read it relaxed, not like scanning or zooming 3 times until you can read the first sentences. Yeah? So is it usable? And this plays on this simple level up to like services. What we've seen, for example, in simple things like directory services. So in our university we use at the moment Blackboard as an operative system for learning support, and Blackboard has recently or in 2009 bought a company from Stanford that basically builds a mobile interface to a whole Blackboard system. But as soon as you want to make these services available on a mobile, different requirements come up for your legacy system. For example, one module they have on the mobile is you have your lecture, your study plan, you want to go to the next seminar. Where is the seminar taking place? Where is the office of the teacher? And for that you need a well-updated directory service with all the stuff in, also with the locations in there. And without that, you're losing some part of the functionality. Yeah? A very interesting question you could ask yourself is, like, I gave the example of architecture. So for some domains, it's much more easy to come up with examples where you argument, okay, here this learning support is connected to real-world objects, buildings. That's simple. It gets a bit more difficult if you think about probably mathematics. Again, it gets easier when you work with cultural sciences, all these kind of things. So the interesting exercise we're doing now, not only with on the university levels, but also with schools, is like, for what subjects and what domains you actually need to have this connection with real-world objects, and where does it help? Yeah, from an educational perspective. One domain we did that was looking at different patterns for using augmented reality for math education, geometry education, but also for higher education. A third one, that is actually connected to what I just said is, so where does this connection really bring an added value or a deeper learning experience or better scaffolding? So really coming from educational impacts you have from this connection of the real world, digital content, and the sensory information. And then a more engineering question, how can you capture that context? And a last one, how is this access on your mobile device? I gave the example of ambient displays. So you should not only think about a mobile device giving support and giving access to the information, but of course it's connected to other displays, other facilities, physical room layout, these kind of things. So how is this related? Okay, thank you.
People seeing us streaming, so
The sensor is there.
well, the sensor,
Yeah, okay.
actuator.
This is the actuator. Correct. Yes.
I don't know whether this is the question. Need to identify the sensor link between your content and the real world that suits your learning goals.
Mm-hmm.
It's more general reflection. Content, the real world that suits your learning goals.
I mean, what we are currently looking into, basically like I said, we kick off activities with different schools and basically with different faculties. And what I think that also is shown by experiences from other organizations, that you need to think about the most powerful connections for a certain domain. Yeah? In cultural sciences, that's relatively straightforward. Yeah? You can use location. For psychology, for example, we are at the moment focusing on notifications. Yeah? Because what they are interested in is real-time data capturing. For example, they do studies for, this is now not related to the educational part, but more to the research part. But they do studies on headache, for example, and they want to learn how the environmental conditions or the context or the situation of a person is related to the development of the headache, for example. So with them we use something like called experience sampling method, and that basically can trigger a question to a user by the development of the weather, let's say. The system has a rule that triggers as soon as temperature and humidity rises above that level, send out a question or a small questionnaire to all our users. Additionally, you can take into account the location, and then you collect the data this way. So in this sense, I think you really have to think about the domains. And to give you one example from an organization we're working with, that is Fontes Hogescholen in the Netherlands. It's basically a college or with about 40,000 students, and what they did is they gave mobiles and iPads to 200 of these to different faculties, to arts, to computer science, to psychology, and asked them, what would you do with these devices and with these kind of applications? And they got a whole really kind of grassroots approach for finding the best opportunities.
Here, do we have any question? If not, thank you once again for your very inspiring talk.